Yeah.
So, what would you say the hardest expedition you've ever been on was?
Well, that's actually fairly easy to answer. I'm proud of a number of rescues I've been involved in. A man gored by a Cape buffalo in Mount Kenya, and we carried him on a backboard down elephant trails through the bamboo. Um, we're rescuing a guy with a Japanese man with a perforated ulcer in a whiteout on Denali and following a compass bearing. This was before GPS. Um, where a woman lost in a cave for 40 hours in South Dakota. It was the second largest cave rescue in U.S. history. All of these people survived. um, but probably the worst one was a young college basketball player. She was a wonderful, strong athlete, and we were in the Himalayas in India, and she got appendicitis. And the monsoon came early and washed out all the trails, which meant we wouldn't get resupplied, which meant we ran out of American food. And we also had no communication device. This is back in the year 2000 when satellite phones were kind of new, and the Indian Army didn't want American satellite phones near the Chinese border. And we were just 20 kilometers away or something. So it took a week to get her out. We were eating dead sheep, going off trail 4,000 feet up, 5,000 feet down, involved the Indian Army, the US Embassy. Um, she survived. She had her appendix out. Um, but that was the first of 4 traumas I had in 5 months. And the second one was the next month on a steep mountain, Mount Shuksan in the Pacific Northwest. And we were on a glacier, and a woman dislocated her patella. And I that in that evacuation, we talked to a United Airline pilot using a ground-to-air radio. He was configuring for landing at SeaTac, and we had it pre-set up that SeaTac would use this 800 number, and literally the protocol was Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. We have a medical emergency and we gave the coordinates and so on. So that was the second one. Helicopter showed up the next morning because it would have been climbing hundreds of feet of 50-degree ice or doing 1,000 feet of rappelling to get her off the mountain. The third trauma was smaller, but I was working a course in Wyoming, and my wife brought our dog to the resupply so that I could say goodbye to it because it had this illness. The fourth one was the next month, and so this is all in a period of 5 months. I was about to work a course with astronauts, and I went to visit my father and ended up taking him to the hospital and canceling the course, canceling my participation in the course, and spent the next 22 days in the hospital with him, watching him die. So all of that happened in a number of months. And then, being the person I was, who was a hard worker, scholar athlete, believed in perseverance, grit, and so on, I jumped back on the horse and led a winter expedition, living in snow caves and so on in Wyoming. Went fine. Spent December cleaning out my dad's house with my siblings and my mom. And then went out and led a winter expedition in January. So this is now more than 6 months later from the first one. And had my first, what I didn't know at the time was an anxiety attack. And I told my coworker, I said, I don't know what's going on, but it's like the grizzly bear is 10 yards away and it's not looking at us. It's charging full speed with the intent to kill. And that's what it feels like in the middle of the night when I wake up. And that was a beginning of a journey to what I call post-traumatic growth. It's not everyone makes it there, and I am passionate now about helping people who've been traumatized and working and thinking about trauma. But at the time, I grew up in this environment where emotion wasn't something we talked about, and it was all about toughness in my head. And so that was really really spurred me to start studying emotion. And the way I did it was as a scientist. So I started reading peer-reviewed journals on emotion and trauma, and I started reading scientific texts on it. And I found that the learning got me excited. It also gave me hope. And I will definitely, and I want to just say this out loud because I want to destigmatize it, but I had full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder. I couldn't work at all for 6 months, and my wife and a good therapist saved my life. 6 months later, I was supposed to lead an expedition on Denali with basically novices. We canceled that idea, and I got back to work in easier environments, backpacking at low elevation. So so that was the genesis of me wanting to study emotions and so on.